Hi there, my name is Tim from the Lugan Center for Psychotherapy, and today I'm joined with Ami Patel Kang. Today we're going to talk a little bit about EMDR stages 1 and 2, but before we get into it, Ami, can you introduce yourself a little bit and maybe start talking about stages 1 and 2?
Yeah, so my name's Ami. I work at the practice as well. I am recently EMDR trained and I love EMDR. It's been a great addition to the practice. So the reason we want to talk about stages 1 and 2 today are stages 1 and 2 really are the foundation for EMDR. And I know we did a video not that long ago on stages 3 to 7. And stages 3 to 7 are usually like what people think of when they think of EMDR, but stages 1 and 2 are also super important. And I think a lot of times clients come into treatment with the idea that they're going to get right into like the nitty gritty of it all, and it can be a little disappointing. But I promise you, stages 1 and 2. You're also learning a lot, and it's going to set up the foundation really, really well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today.
Absolutely, and I just want to echo Ami's point really quick. Everyone thinks, when they think EMDR, they think about stages 3 through 7. And then when they come into our offices and we say, okay, this is what EMDR is, then we go through the whole process. In the first meeting or two, people are like, okay, wait, this is way different than I thought, right? So I'm hoping that this video is watched or shared just as much as the other video that goes through the thing that people want to see, right?
Totally, yeah. That's when are the eye movements going to start, and we'll get there.
Yes,
the goal is to get there for sure.
Exactly. So start us off. Stage 1, what is it?
Stage 1 is history taking and treatment planning. So this is a stage where we're pretty much getting to know our clients, understanding who they are, where they come from, what's really bringing them to treatment.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Stage 1 really is we spend a lot of time getting to know the client, getting to know what they're dealing with, where they're at, why they're coming to us now, building a really good rapport, and really getting a chance to take, and what I think is the most important part, like a really thorough trauma history. Right?
Yeah.
And stage 1, it might sound kind of simple, like it's a, hi, nice to meet you, tell me about yourself. It might seem like it's just kind of maybe a session or two. It can take a long time.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, I think that in stage 1, it is so important to, really be able to understand where a person is at with their trauma. And so I guess I'll be a little bit more specific. So what I like to do is, in stage 1, what I'll do is I'll take a trauma history. So I'll get a really good sense on what's happened to the person, the painful life events that they've gone through. I want to get a sense on their piled up feelings from those traumas, their piled up negative beliefs about themselves. I want to know about their triggers, right? Like what happens on a day-to-day basis that might elicit these feelings. And I want to know about their, what we call solution behaviors, right? When all of this stuff sort of gets triggered and we're flooded with all of these thoughts and feelings, what do you do in order to take care of it, right?
Right.
And I get to a spot at the end of stage 1 where I sort of kind of explain all of that to a client, right? Okay, you've been through these things, and having worked with a lot of folks that have gone through things, it's common that people believe these sorts of things about themselves and piled up feelings of these. And then when a trigger happens, like, for example, whatever the trigger is, you feel all those feelings really big, and then in order for you to take care of them, you end up doing your solution behavior.
Right.
Right? And so to really have that trauma-informed perspective and that trauma-informed understanding of what a person is dealing with, I think is so important. And if you don't have that, I really don't think you can go any further with it.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense, right? So a lot of times people come in, one of the reasons I got trained in EMDR, a lot of times people come in and you're gathering all this information anyway, right? And you're building this rapport with clients and you're working from a trauma-informed lens, but EMDR will help you take that trauma and process it in a safe way. So whether clients are coming in for whatever other reason, a lot of times it's solution behaviors that are the presenting problems that we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
But when someone comes in specifically for EMDR treatment, this is something that we have to take the time to understand about each client.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, right? I think 2 points here that I would want, folks to know. Sometimes, and I think you've had this experience, where let's say someone comes in not for EMDR.
Yep.
And we do an intake and we do an assessment and we get a lot of information, and then we say to ourselves, oh, okay, you're actually coming in for, let's say, you're drinking. But in reality, that's just your solution behavior, because every time you're triggered by whatever the trigger is, you feel overwhelmingly blank, and you end up drinking because of that. And then we ask ourselves a question like, where does that come from? It's like, oh, you've been through all these events in the past that get triggered, elicited, feel these feelings, and then you drink, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it could be really interesting with people coming in. We might be in stage 1 of EMDR and they don't even realize it.
Totally. Right? Or we don't even realize it sometimes, right? Because clients come in for so many different reasons, and different clients have a different level of understanding of their past painful events, right? So sometimes clients come in and it takes a long time, 6 months, a year, before they're ready to share something that vulnerable with you. But that is also, that's part of history taking.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So sometimes folks will come into treatment and using a trauma-informed perspective, exactly what we're talking about, we might see, oh my God, EMDR is going to be perfect.
Yep.
And then other folks come into treatment where they have a lot of insight about their past, and they know that they've gone through a lot of traumas and painful life events, and they say, okay, I'm here for EMDR. I want to get started. How many sessions will this take? And let's go.
Yep.
And then that's when we have to, backtrack,
take
right?
Steps back.
Take a lot of steps back and say, all right, I have to go through all of these things with you. And really that's stage 1. Sometimes it can be rather quick, like a session or 2. Sometimes it could take a really long time.
Yeah.
And also, I guess just one more note about it. I think you'll agree with me here, but we have to be really careful in stage 1, right? We're meeting someone, and part of it is taking an assessment of a trauma history.
Yeah.
Before we get into a trauma history, we really want to be making sure that the person has the capabilities to take care of themselves before we bring all this sort of stuff up.
Well, and that's where stage 2 comes in.
And then that's where stage 2 comes in. So stage 2, introduce it for us.
Stage 2 is called preparation. Basically, how I like to think about it, though, it's resource development, right? We're developing the skills and making sure that our clients have the resilience that's necessary to start opening up some of these wounds and working through them. So I'd love to hear about how you usually go about the resource development process.
Yeah, so stage 2 can take a long time.
Yeah. Sometimes,
right?
For sure. Well, and I think it starts with what you were talking about earlier, right? Which is trying to understand, trying to assess what skills clients have or don't have that we may need to work a little bit more on. And some clients come in after years of therapy and they've already had worked on a lot of this stuff. And some clients we're starting from the beginning with.
Yeah, those clients that do come in from previous therapies and they have all of these phenomenal coping skills and all these great ways to take care of themselves, it's like, stage 2 sometimes goes a little bit quicker.
Totally.
But so you're absolutely right. So kind of the way that I explain it is EMDR could be really tough, right? We're intentionally going into, revisiting the worst memories and the worst experiences that you've probably gone through.
Yeah.
Right? And the essence of trauma is that all of these feelings and thoughts and everything about this experience is still alive. It's buried, but it's buried alive.
Right.
So we know we're going to go in and we know we're going to, push that soil away and we're going to pull this thing out.
I love that. Push the soil away. And yeah.
That's what we're going to do. And so I explain to people, it is so important. It's rule number 1 of EMDR that you have to be able to take care of yourself before we do this work.
Yep.
Right? So that's really what stage 2 is. It's building up the skills to make sure that you can take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
And it is the priority, right? Because what do you think can happen if we don't do a good job in stage 2?
Well, a lot of things, right? The symptoms of PTSD can really come flooding in. And honestly, I've seen it happen. And sometimes even when we do a thorough job with resource development, when you're working through, when you're moving on to stage 3, 4, certain symptoms might start arising in your day-to-day life where we need to go back to stage 2, and that's okay. That's not a failure. That's a part of the process.
Absolutely. It's not like once stage 2 is done, you're done with it forever,
right. Now
and then you're
I have
on
skills for the rest of my life.
Right? No.
If only it worked well.
we bounce back and forth a lot if and when needed, and oftentimes it's needed, right? And so we want to make sure that we're being really careful because we don't want to do harm, right? Like we want to make sure that people are ready for it and prepared.
Yeah.
So what does that actually look like? Well, we develop a lot of resources. Resources is a strange term, a little hard to explain, but when I think about a resource, it's something that we have that we can draw upon when we need it, right? So that could be anything. If you think physically in our real life, we have resources like money and food, and we draw upon that when we need it. But really what we're talking about here is more internal resources. Aspects of our character, our personality, or our strengths, places that we can go, things that we can do to lean on when we're feeling a lot.
Right.
So talking about resources, it's a very long conversation, but I think we could talk about a few specifics that I always try to hit in stage 2. So I'll start talking about a container. A container really is, it's an imaginary place where we can put things away. So I like to explain it this way. Our brains have this amazing ability to bury stuff anyways.
Right.
And that's kind of why people are here in the first place if you think about it. It's almost like we're kind of using our brain's ability to do that, compartmentalize and bury, but we're doing it intentionally. So what we do is we create an imaginary container, and we use our imagination, and we try to make it as real as possible, so people have a place to put these memories, thoughts, feelings, etc. in between our sessions.
Yep, exactly. And containers is something that I don't know if you use regularly throughout the stages, but at the end of every session, I usually do have clients use that. So it's something that could be used outside of the room, but also during the process. So it's a really important resource.
That's completely right, because most times when we're processing a memory, we don't finish. Right, and then we see that if there's 10 minutes left of session, we say, okay, we got to put this away.
Yep.
So a really important resource that you need from stage 2 is a container.
Yep.
Right, and I've heard of loads of different containers, like boxes and jars and storage units and trunks of a car and coffins and loads of interesting containers.
And some clients really like to get creative with it, right? Where they like have a lock and a key, and they leave the key in the office, or get creative with it, because the more specific you are, the more real it feels.
Yep.
And it really is just another mindfulness skill, right? Being able to use your brain to create a safe place to leave painful memories. And one of the things I often tell clients is, we're going to get to this. This isn't like putting it away forever. This is trusting that this space is a safe space to bring it up, but we don't need to burden ourselves with it outside of here.
Completely. It's like, I need you to have this here, but I don't need you to have this on Thursday at noon when you're doing whatever you're doing. Right.
Well, where you have to go back to your old solution behaviors to deal with it, because we haven't processed it yet.
Bingo, right? Excellent. So that's one piece of stage 2. Let's see if some other pieces. Really, I would say just mindfulness in general.
Yeah, lots of different types of mindfulness skills, right? There's breathing techniques that we can go over. Some clients do lean more into breathing and learning how to slow down their nervous system. I do use Calm Place / Safe Place. I think they call it a couple different things, but I do use that sometimes as well. Do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Sure, I'll talk about that. So you call it Calm or Safe Place. I call it Resource Place.
Okay.
Because I just like to use the word resource.
Sure.
So a resource place, I like to explain it this way. So let's imagine you're my fake client, and I'll say, Ami, we're going to be going to a lot of places that are going to give you a lot of really rough and tough feelings. And then you say, yeah. And so I say, we should probably have a place in our front pocket where we can go to where we get what we need. right? Like we're going to go to all these different places where we feel so much pain and hurt, etc. We need to go to a place where we can get a resource.
Yep.
9 times out of 10, I think the resource that people need is calm and peace and tranquility.
Yep.
Right?
Safety.
And safety, right? So we have people do just that, right? We have them close their eyes and tell us what they imagine or what comes to them. A lot of times I hear about a lot of beaches.
Yep, a lot of beaches.
Mountains, forests, lakes, previous memories that are really great and empowering.
Yep.
And we really want to have the person kind of like sink into that place, right? See what they see, hear what they hear, smell what they smell, feel what they feel, and really be in that place so they can literally change how we're feeling, how we're thinking, and even our physiology in the moment.
Yeah.
It's a huge coping skill.
Huge. And speaking to, like, I think the reason why we have a lot of beaches, a lot of mountains, things like that is even when you have painful events happening in your childhood, if there are times where you can remember feeling that safety, that calm, the further back we go to pull this resource, the more powerful it can be.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so a resource place, I mean, I'll be honest, sometimes I bring it up to people and they're like, give me a break. Like, okay, like I'll go to my safe space. But it actually really is powerful and important.
Yeah. I feel like 80% of the time, even clients that are like non-believers at first will be like, okay, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, and I think that goes for really like all the mindfulness techniques that we really talk about in stage 2.
Yeah.
Right? Like some people even think that a container is cheesy.
Yeah.
But then they try it and it works in a resource place. Or breathing. Breathing is a really big one, obviously, because our entire nervous system gets charged up or wound down.
Yeah.
When we bring up past traumas, and our ability to regulate that right here, right now is paramount and huge.
Yep. You just brought up a really important thing, charged up or wound down. Maybe this is a good time to talk about like the window of tolerance, because that's really what we're doing in stage 2, right? Like helping clients understand the window of tolerance and when their bodies are becoming either hyper aroused or hypo aroused.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take what you said and bounce it back.
Please.
So we have our window of tolerance, right? Imagine it from like -10 to +10, and 0 is kind of like a baseline. That's how I explain it anyways. And when we're in hyperarousal, that means our nervous system is really charged up. We might be anxious, panicky, agitated. Our nervous system is sort of firing on all cylinders. There's lots of hormones pumping through our system. Fight, flight response, right? And think about, I think about the top of hyperarousal as like a panic attack.
Same, yeah.
Right? And then 0 is, when we're kind of regular, normal. And then hypoarousal, that's when our nervous system is really kind of like slowed and shut down, right? Where we might be like lethargic, we might be a little bit dissociative, just really charged down, almost like flat.
Yeah, for sure.
And we could be anywhere in that spectrum.
Yeah.
But the most important, really key term, like you said, window of tolerance, right? Our window of tolerance is, I would say, maybe from like +7 to -7, around there.
Around there.
Where things...
And different for different people.
Completely, right? Where things are maybe a little uncomfortable, but tolerable.
Yes.
Right? Where we take ratings of how distressed people feel, and if we're feeling distress level 6, that's actually kind of like where we want to be.
Exactly.
Because like really good work can happen there and we still feel okay.
Exactly. Well, we could still handle it, right? Like the distress is something that doesn't need to be as dangerous as sometimes our bodies respond to it, right? And like you said, like the top of the window of tolerance, we don't want a panic attack. Or at the bottom, I think of the bottom, I don't know if you would agree with this, but as being dissociated. Yeah. So being in that middle area and even pushing the limits a little bit, which we will be doing during processing, it's really important to be able to recognize when we're kind of getting just a little bit past that window.
Absolutely, right?
And feel like we have the tools to handle it if and when that happens.
Bingo, right? So rule number one of EMDR is we take care of ourselves. That means we take care of ourselves inside of our session, outside of our session. And so I tell everyone, if we're outside of our window of tolerance, we need to pause.
Yep.
We need to back up,
Yep.
and we need to use one of the skills that are in our toolbox from our lovely work we did in stage 2 to regulate the nervous system, get back to the window of tolerance, and then we're back into it.
Right.
Right?
If they want to.
If they want to.
If they want to. Sometimes that it's a lot, and we just use the rest of the session to do some skills and feel ready to walk out the door.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Another thing that I wanted to mention is, sometimes we can be in stage 2 for a really long time.
Yep.
It really is paramount that the person is ready for processing. And also, a lot of times I'll go through like really good stage 2 work with people.
Yeah.
And they'll be so good at managing their symptoms. They'll become really mindful. They'll kind of like take it and run with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even go into processing because really all the work that was needed was stage 2 work.
Right.
So it really is huge and powerful and super important.
Yeah. As you're talking, and I haven't really thought about this before, but tell me how you think, like what you think, and we can cut this if this is stupid, but I'm going to restart that.
Okay.
I haven't really thought about this before, but as you were talking, it just like kind of popped into my head. I feel like other types of therapy sometimes are stage 2 work, right? Like CBT, DBT, where we're learning the skills to work on our triggers and to,
Completely, right? And I think stage 2 gets a bad rep, right? Because it seems like it's like, oh, I just have to do this thing before I do my actual work that I want to do.
Yes.
But like, no, that's therapy.
That's also work.
Like this is
really important work, and sometimes more important because that's what you're taking with you out of here.
Completely, right? So I really can't stress enough how stage 2 is so important. Like it really is in many, many ways similar to so many other types of therapy that you're going to go into.
Right.
And it really gets us ready to, it gets us able to regulate ourselves, take care of ourselves. Sometimes that's all the people need.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Okay, so I hope that gave everyone a pretty good idea of what stage 1 and stage 2 look like. Obviously, we can't speak about every single aspect of stage 1 and stage 2, but we gave you a pretty good picture of it. We gave you some examples of some things that you'll be doing in stage 1 and stage 2. We mentioned that it could be taking a little long, and really what we did is we highlighted the importance of it. So I hope that this was helpful for everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in.